Children's Prattle by Hans Christian Andersen. At a rich merchant house there was a children's party, and the children of rich and great people were there. The merchant was a learned man, for his father had sent him to college, and he had passed his examination. His father had been at first only a cattle dealer, but always honest and intrusive, so that he had made money, and his son, the merchant, had managed to increase his store. Clever as he was, he had also a heart, but there was less sad of his heart than of his money. All descriptions of people visited at the merchant house were born as well as intellectual, and some possessed neither of these accommodations. Now it was a children's party, and there was children's prattle, which always is spoken freely from the heart. Among them was a beautiful little girl, who was terribly proud, but who had been taught her by the servants and not by her parents, who were for two sensible people. Her father was groom of the chambers, which is high office at court, and she knew it. "I am a child of the court," she said. Now she might just as well have been a child of a cellar, for no one can help his birth. And when she told the other children that she was well born, and said that no one who was not well born could rise in the world, it was of no use to read and be intrusive, for if a person was not well born, he could never achieve anything. And those whose names ends with sen, said she, can never be anything at all. We must put our arms akimbo and make the elbows quite pointed, so as to keep the sense people at a great distance. And she stuck out her pretty little arms and made the elbows quite pointed, to show how it was to be done. And her little arms were very pretty, for she was a sweet-looking child. But the little daughter of a merchant became very angry at the speech, for her father's name was Peterson, and she knew that the name ended with sen. And therefore she said as proudly as she could, "When my papa can buy $100 worth of bonbons and give them away to children, can your papa do it?" "Yes, and my papa," said the little daughter of the editor of a paper. "My papa can put your papa and everybody's papa into the newspapers. All sorts of people are afraid of him." And mamma said, "For he can do as he likes with the paper." And the little maiden looked exceedingly proud, as if she had been a real princess, or may be expected to look proud. But outside the door, which stood ajar, was a poor boy, peeping through a crack of a door. He was of such a lowly station that he had not been allowed even to enter the room. He had been turned with spit, and she had given him permission to stand behind the door and peep in at the well-dressed children who were having such a merry time within. And for him that was a great deal. Oh, if there could be one of them, thought he. And when he heard what was said about names, it was quite enough to make him more unhappy. His parents at home had not even a penny to spare to buy a newspaper, much less could they write and run. And worse than all, his father's name, and of course his own, ended in sen. And therefore he could never turn out well, which was a very sad thought. But after all, he had been born into the world, the station of life had been chosen for him, wherefore he must be content. And this is what happened on that evening. Many years passed, and most of the children became grown-up persons. There stood a splendid house in the town, filled with all kinds of beautiful and valuable objects. Everybody wished to see it, and people even come in from the country road to be permitted to view the treasures it contained. Which of the children whose prattle we have described could call this house his own? One would suppose it very easy to guess. No, it is not so very easy. The house belonged to the poor little boy who had been stood on the night behind the door. He had really become something great, although his name ended in sen, for it was Thorwaldsen. And the three other children, the children of good birth, of money, and of intellectual pride, they were respected and honored, and the world, for they had been well provided for their birth and position, and they had no cause to reproach themselves with what they had thought and spoken on that evening so long ago, for after all it was mere children's prattle.